The U.S., architect of disaster. It is fascinating to watch U.S. presidents as they call names and promise destruction, especially so soon after the flood of disasters that have been waged throughout the Middle East. Iraq is a social, economic, environmental, and spiritual basket case. Libya is little better. Both are horrific examples of U.S. interventions that have plunged both societies into deadly hellscapes, places of religious strife, kidnappings, broken institutions, and rape. For the U.S. and its so-called allies are good at destruction of governments. Reconstruction? Not so much. Now, the American way lumbers into Syria, ostensibly to weaken ISIS, lately called the Islamic State. As in Iraq and later Libya, the U.S. and its ignoble allies are in contempt of the people who are invariably referred to coldly as collateral damage. The Arab so-called allies cover for the imperialists who are actually collaborators with Western foreigners. All the rap about training armies? If the U.S. couldn't do it in 12 years, a few months are simply laughable. This means that the U.S. and Western military efforts will continue indefinitely, for months, for years perhaps. And to what end? Democracy? An end to terrorism? Hardly. For one thing, imagine the various and sundry members of the so-called coalition. Should it surprise us that, with the exception of France, there's hardly a democracy among them? This war, like the Iraq war before it, promised heaven but delivered hell. It was and is a disaster that promises more suffering for the Arabs who had the immense misfortune of being born in lands where lakes of oil bubbled beneath them. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Noel Hanrahan of Prison Radio.
Arena. You know, you're almost compelled to say, "Oh yeah." It brings out. I'm your host, Yang and Kruma. This is The Arena. You can catch us on YouTube, all one word, The Arena 2013. Man, we have an interesting show, interesting panel, bringing it to you again like we always do. But like we do at The Arena, we allow everyone to introduce themselves. So I'll start with my right, at my right.
Hi, my name is Diane Mathowitz. I am a member of the movement to end Israeli apartheid, Georgia.
Excellent, excellent.
And I'm Kevin Caron. Back from last week, I'm with the Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition, but this week I'm here to help out with some interviewing on our topic today.
Excellent.
My name is Dawn Gibson. I am also a member of the movement to end Israeli apartheid, Georgia, and I represent that organization on Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition Steering Committee.
I be your brother, Gidon Ben Yashara Al, your servant. Thank you for allowing me in the arena.
Thank you for being here, brother. Sure. All right, let's get to it. And since Kevin, since you said you're starting this out and getting us, helping us with the special guest host today, let's let you do your thing.
Sure. So I brought this up a couple weeks ago. We were talking about kind of connecting some of the struggles that were going on in Gaza and the Israeli attack on Gaza, and connecting that to some of the things going on here in the United States, things like what happened in Ferguson, and what's still ongoing in Ferguson. And so in order to bring that together, I wanted to invite a couple people to talk about GILEE, which is called the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange. So that actually connects with both of these issues very well. And with that said, I'd like to ask, could you, Dawn, maybe introduce us, tell us what GILEE is.
Okay. GILEE is a law enforcement exchange. It's an international law enforcement exchange where police officers, mostly senior officers and police chiefs, go to another country to learn different tactics. But the relationship that Mia G and the Progressive Student Alliance, a student organization at Georgia State University that I was also a member of, focused on was the relationship with Israel, so which is its most intimate relationship. So our police chiefs here in Georgia, some even outside of the state of Georgia, not as many, but definitely there were also administrators such as like people through maybe the FBI and GBI, I think that's what we found through our research, went to Israel to learn counterterrorism tactics. And then there would be Israeli police who would come here to the United States, to Georgia State, to learn drug reinforcement tactics.
So would they actually be patrolling with officers and riding in, you know, like in our neighborhoods?
That is something that we haven't discovered. One of the things that is troubling about this program, besides the obvious relationship with Israel, is the fact that it is not transparent and they're not forthcoming with what happens in the program. So we don't even know, you know, even though we know that it's Israeli police, it is possible, and I say possible, you know, because this could be wrong, that, you know, some people from the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, might be even coming over as well. They won't even let us know when these exchange students are here in the United States. They keep a lot of that information quite under wraps.
Diane, why do you think that that they're having this law enforcement exchange? What's the significance of that?
I wanted to say a little bit more about the founding of this. So it started in 1992, and it's actually on the campus of Georgia State. And a professor by the name of Robert Friedman is who actually helped put this together. And so what you have is a state institution being the go-between or the host or the developer of a program that, as we said, brings Israeli police to the United States and takes all kinds of police forces here in the state of Georgia to Israel. And this can include people from the smallest of towns, like the one that just finished this summer, a couple months ago, included the Rockdale County Sheriff Department,
Really?
Conyers Police Department, Pine Lake. Police from Pine Lake.
Wow.
Pine Lake. Pooler. Sandy Springs, Rome, and Tifton. These were the police departments. Then we had sheriffs from Fulton, Hall, Telfair counties, plus people from the state departments of different, like the corrections, investigation, natural resources, public safety. These are the folks who went to Israel to learn counterterrorism. Now, someone might ask, Pine Lake needs to have, and I think it goes in line with what we're talking about of the militarization of the police as well. So that Israel is probably world known for its, what do we want to call it?
Worldwide killing,
for its
international killers.
For its surveillance and police state. I don't know any other way to put it.
Absolutely.
Both because of the IDF, which is the army, which operates in the occupied territories and commits so many different kinds of human rights abuses. Their prisons, which are notorious for torture. And then you have the police, many of whom come out of the IDF because in Israel, every male or every person over the age of 18 has to go through the military. So you have a police force that has been largely totally powerful in enforcing an occupation. And so those then are the police that are so-called training every level. Oh, and campus police. Georgia State campus police have gone to Israel to learn counterterrorism.
So what is this speaking to? I mean, should, you know, and especially for the people listening, what is this speaking to? What is the bigger picture? What are they saying about, are we just, you know, are we beating around the bush? Is there going to be some type of lockdown? Are they ready to declare martial law? Is this the first step of preparation for that? For the peoples over here in the Americas? Is this, so I mean, what is like the bigger picture? What is, like I'm saying, what is the meat of this? Giddy, I know you burning to go, man.
Well, you're absolutely correct, sir. This is, don't be shy about it. Say it what it is.
Say what it is.
You already said it.
Okay.
It is counterterrorism because they create their enemies, and then they train worldwide the people who are in line with militarizing and policing the world. See, that one world government concept has to have a root, and that root is America. But you have to understand, when we talk about occupation, look at Israel, 1948. They came and occupied a land with the United States, Europe backing them.
Absolutely.
They took over, and now America, who has came over here, took over. Obviously, they have an incestuous relationship. But when we look at the issue of them coming and teaching the police of the, in Small Pooler, Pine Lake Police, what we're talking about is Rex 84, the Patriot Act. We're talking about Homeland Security, what they are preparing for. And then also, one of the beloved sisters at our congregation referenced, she said, I've been riding by military installations, and they have hundreds of coffins. And they had the coffins sitting up front, but then when people start bringing the world's attention, or our community's attention to the coffins, they pull military vehicles in front of those coffins. So when I talk about policing and I think of Israel, I think of Mossad, the high elite police force. Because these are the people who they're really training to be like. It's not just the person that walks on the beat on the street. What you're talking about is worldwide policing and the intellect that it takes to propagandize.
So this isn't just for that ISIS threat?
ISIS
No, so I think we should talk about that because this program was started in 1992. Now, we have had, all of us have seen the
Al-Qaeda?
The denigration, the diminishment of civil liberties and civil rights in this country, and they do it all under the basis of of 9/11.
Yes.
But this started in 92. And I think from my perspective, part of this is the preparation of a system which very frankly sees worldwide that people are rising up, that they're really not interested anymore in being exploited and oppressed, and there's resistance that's taking place. So yes, so why is Pooler, Sandy Springs Police, Pine Lake Police going? I do believe that it is part of an effort to develop, but not just within the police force, a mentality of really controlling unrest and keep pushing us back into subservience through the fear of this really now high-tech weaponry that they use.
Right.
But I also want to say that I think it goes hand in glove with the U.S. foreign policy towards Israel.
Absolutely.
Which is for Israel to essentially be like the gendarme, the
pit bull.
Good word.
Exactly.
The one with the big stick in the Middle East to make sure that the oppressed Arab and Muslim
stay oppressed.
Right, and that the oil
keeps flowing.
So on the other side, then Israeli police supposedly come here to learn community policing and drug enforcement. And we'll get into how it is that we discovered this entity that existed on Georgia State's campus, which is largely funded by corporate money from, name all the corporations, Georgia Power, Cox
Communications,
government.
And their board of directors the same. So that you see this collusion between those, what we call the 1%, and the militarized police force.
I heard,
with that,
I heard you mention Cox Communications. Would you be able to talk about Cox Communications? Are they associated with the newspaper in Atlanta?
They own it.
They own the newspaper in Atlanta. Okay, so this corporation that owns the newspaper in Atlanta and the information that people are getting on it,
many other things,
and many other things, is very invested in this program that is teaching policing.
Yeah, think about it. You're this multi-billionaire, or you're this corporation that employs tens of thousands of people and pays them low wages and is always making them work harder for less.
Exactly.
And you look around the world and you see the mass of people,
Right, Goyim.
and you say to yourself, oh my gosh, they're going to come after me.
Sooner or later, you can fool them some of the time.
Exactly.
So I think, not to, to be real crazy about this, but I do believe that the whole emphasis on the militarizing of police, whether it's in Little Ferguson or Pooler or wherever, is in fact a feeling, an awareness.
Of impending doom. Let me say this.
Absolutely.
Doom for them.
Yes, money.
Liberation.
Well, now let me say this as well. In the outlying areas, some of these places that you're talking about, there have been more killings of so-called woolly-haired, melanated young men than you've ever known, because they're not in the immediate metropolitan area.
Yeah.
We hadn't heard about it.
Yeah.
But they had a police captain talked about the increased number of killings. So what we find is the type of mentality, the militarization, the fact that there is a zero tolerance concept with the police force. Would you say that comes from the training and this relationship between America and Israel and how they plan to dominate the world itself?
Well, actually, woo, okay. Because actually, I'll answer that, and I also want to answer what Yanga asked. First of all, when we think about police violence on black and brown people, it's not, confined to just black men, of course. We're talking about black women. Definitely, there's plenty of evidence of even police forces. Against black trans women as well. So, and definitely with what Diane was saying before, that the police, in my opinion, the police exist, not only just to keep, the former slave population, contained and controlled, and other brown populations, but also dissent. And it has always crushed dissent. People, it's so funny, people say, wow, Ferguson's just like the 60s. I'm just like, well, guys, come on. There's also the G20 protests in Pittsburgh of several years ago. Like, watching it is like watching a dystopian sci-fi. You've got the police literally occupying the streets, tear gassing people, dogs and everything. And this was in 2010.
Hello.
And so 2014, what do we have? We have an increased militarization. They've become more effective.
Exactly.
The police have always been militarized to some extent.
Of course.
But in terms of kind of like, why is it, I think when we talk about increased deaths of people of color, what we need to realize is that we're depending on the mainstream media,
Right.
who is owned by the corporation.
Thank you.
The deaths have always happened.
Yes.
The only reason why, like for instance, some of you might remember Rodney King.
Yes.
The reasons why we were able to talk about Rodney King was why? Because it was on video.
The late Rodney King.
Same thing with with Trayvon Martin to some degree. We have some audio of the death. Oscar Grant, so we know, and unfortunately this is a truth that a lot of us of African descent, that a lot of, unfortunately other peoples as well in this country have learned, is that these deaths, these things have always happened. I would challenge and ask, my brothers of African descent, if you guys remember being taught how to act with the police.
Absolutely.
I remember my own father told me that he and his brother, like if you said you're kidding, that's resisting arrest. Like there's certain ways that you are trained to behave with the police.
Absolutely.
So then think about this exchange. So you've got an exchange with the police force here in the United States that has a history of keeping a particular population controlled, and also has crushed dissent, especially with the labor union, labor movement.
Yes.
And with other movements in this country,
Yes.
having an exchange with Israel. The state of Israel, which is also trying to keep a population contained, ethnic cleansing, whatever.
Right.
not to be all nerdy and Ghostbustery-y, but it sounds like the keymaster and the gatekeeper coming together. That's what it sounds like.
That pretty
But
is
basically,
Ghostbusters.
these two, these two entities should not be working together. There's nothing, when you're talking about community policing, they're not talking about what the people mean about community policing. They're talking about what the state. So we're talking about a police state exchanging
Bingo.
sort of like, tactics on how do you keep your people down?
That's
okay,
right.
this is how we keep our
Willie
people
Lynch
down.
thing.
And I'll stop.
No, don't stop. Keep on. See, what
that's
you're
never
dealing
stop.
with is spiritual powers on exceedingly high places.
Well,
And
man,
I
that
know-
gun in that brother's face.
it's not spiritual.
It's not-
But what she's talking about is the incestuous relationship between America and Israel. And of course, the natural mind would say, what is the relationship and why?
You better
But it's
get
a
real
spiritual
revelation on this
thing
right
here.
now, ain't you?
I'm just saying to you, it's a spiritual thing, and the power that they are invoking has to do with demonic power. It has to do with oppression, militarization, incarceration, and total annihilation of the population of dissenters. So when you look at this mentality, it can't be anything but demonic.
I agree with that, but I think that our response, the question is going to be, our response has to be more than just the spiritual. With no offense to the spiritual, it's going to have to be more, because African people here in America have been spiritual for so long.
But that's
So-
what's
so
going
long.
to save. See,
So-
now let me show you, because
so
what you just said
it's
is
time-
correct now.
Because, like, I mean,
Tell it, young.
yeah, our relationship with, and what's strange about this with Africans in America is, like you adequately put, Don, our relationship with the police have not been a good one.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? We know we've been taught as an African man, a black man here in America, like you said, we've been taught when we get
And black
pulled
women.
over, and black women have been taught, and I'm finding out, I've been taught the same thing. When we get pulled over, just automatic heart rate. I mean, you can be legit, driver's license legit, nothing in the car, and just sweat pours down. Hands on the steering wheel, don't reach too fast for you. You gotta let them know it's in the glove, man. So, but what we're looking for though is, like we were saying, we understand significance. So you're saying that they understand what, like you were saying, Diane, that one of the things that they understand, that the way that they're going, the way that the system is going and the state is going, that naturally, that there's going to be an uprising of the people. So they're preparing for that ahead of time.
Exactly.
So how did you, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
How did you come about this?
All right, so the movement to end Israeli apartheid Georgia actually flowed out of, if you remember, there have been multiple times that Israel has launched like a shock and awe, an incredible, devastating attack on Gaza, which is this, people should know, is this very small strip of land that has 1.7 million people just really close together, that's totally blockaded. Israel doesn't let people out through the sea. They can't get out through the side that borders Israel, and then they weren't able to really get out through the side that borders Egypt. And so in 2008 and 2009, there was another one of these horrible massacres. And we had multiple demonstrations that took place at the Israeli consulate in the hundreds and hundreds of people expressing the outrage of people here in Atlanta about what Israel was doing. And we wanted, also, it wasn't just what Israel was doing, because every bomb and every bullet and every airplane
American
was
made.
from the United States,
Thank you.
supplied by U.S. aid. So following the so-called end of that assault, there was a real strong sense that we needed to continue the educational work, the agitational work, the mobilization work to make sure that we just didn't respond to a vicious attack, but that we went to the root, or we tried to respond to what Palestinians were calling for. And Palestinians were calling for boycott, divestment, and sanctions, very much in the same mode as the South African anti-apartheid fighters had done, which was that they were saying that we know that this government in Israel is sustained so strongly, so heavily, so intrinsically by U.S. military aid and U.S. diplomatic support and corporate entities that are invested there. And so the idea is that you go after these entities that are based here in the United States, and you shame them, you expose them, you denounced them for their relationship with what is really an apartheid, supremacist occupation.
Teach. Don't be shy.
So what had happened was, as all of us said, people who were students at Georgia State had no idea this institution was there.
True.
No, none of us knew. And so what had happened was, of course, people remember Katherine Johnston had been murdered.
Yes.
And this was this despicable crime.
Despicable.
Could you tell the story of that
Sure.
crime?
She was a
just for viewers?
92-year-old woman
Right.
who lived on Neal Street.
On Neal Street, exactly.
She was a pillar of the community.
Beautiful woman.
She and her sister lived in this house. Her sister had died. The rogue Atlanta police
That's
that had
right.
this drug
No-knock.
squad got a no-knock warrant based
Exactly.
on totally phony information. Went to her house and broke the door down.
Exactly.
She had an old rusty revolver.
That was gunfire exchange.
And it was dark.
Right.
She had been preparing Thanksgiving dinner. It was the day before Thanksgiving. And so she fired at these
In the
men
dark.
Right, she
who
lived
were
on Neal Street.
who were coming
I mean,
in through
anybody-
the door. They shot her 39 times.
Oh,
And when they got in there, discovered it was a 92-year-old elderly black woman.
exactly.
They planted
Planted
drugs
drugs on
and
her. Handcuffed her.
left her
To die. I don't
on the
think she
floor.
was still dead. That case brought me out.
Yes.
I went down to the Capitol. I was so angry, but I wasn't angry at anybody there, but they perceived it as such. And I was trying to find a meeting, and these females that was at the security guard saw me. I was at from work, me and my brother. I mean, I was so outraged. And what they did was profile me and lied and said that I had done something wrong in the Capitol and had the police come and arrest me. I was wrong. What I didn't do is I disobeyed a legal, a lawful command to show my ID. I said I had to show it when I first came in. I'm here trying to find a meeting. 6 dudes, they herniated me. It was because of Katherine John. That story. But see, our people keep voting. Go ahead.
Anyhow, so it took years. And it took a lot, but eventually the whole lie that the police had concocted to cover themselves on this heinous murder. Some cops actually went to trial. In my personal experience, was the first time I'd ever known that police actually were put on trial for killing somebody. 2 of them went and served some time.
About 6 years.
But it wasn't on the charge of murder.
No.
It was
trumped up.
some minor, like they disobeyed regulations.
Throw us a little.
But anyway, so what happened is when I actually was the one who found this little tiny article in the Atlanta Constitution about some police who had just returned from Israel from this Gilly program. And in Miyaji, we had been trying to find a way to connect the viciousness and the brutality of what was happening to Palestinians under the occupation and just by the State of Israel inherent racism, to make a connection with the same struggle here in Atlanta and in the United States.
Absolutely.
So everybody was very conscious, I think, about what had happened with Katherine Johnston, this phony baloney no-knock, the lies. And here was this program with Israel. And so that was how we started the Gilly campaign to go after first trying to get it off the Georgia State campus, because this is taxpayer.
That's how they do it.
Taxpayer space,
That's how they
a
do it.
taxpayer paid professor.
You voted for the people that told you they were going to bring people in to kill you. And you voted for it.
And so even though there is most of the money that sustains these trips and stuff is corporate, and they are lauded by the Georgia Assembly, by all the politicians. They're just cozy with them. But that was how it started.
What a powerful.
So very, very powerful.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Don, but I have a question coming to you, Don. Being, you know, and when you know a lot of our viewers, especially on YouTube, are Africans here in America, black Americans, you know, we go through all the things we call.
Yeah.
How does this?
It is what it is.
Right, it is what it is. So a lot of viewers. So coming from you, first of all, how does this affect us specifically? And why should us as Africans here in America be concerned, and how do we get involved, and where can we start to really to do some things?
Well, I think I can probably begin, you know, as a person of African descent, kind of like how I became interested in the campaign. One of the things that Mia G and the Progressive Student Alliance hosted was a screening of Slingshot Hip Hop, which, you know, is basically a documentary about the Palestinian hip hop group DEM. I think that stands for the Arabian MCs. You know, they're pretty awesome, and some other. But watching it, first of all, there's the connection with hip hop. You know, that alone is an intimate connection with blacks in this country. But also, some of the narratives that I heard from my brothers and sisters sounded very, very much like the same narratives that we have here. The difference for me was that they knew it was because they were Palestinian that they were being oppressed. Sometimes I feel like black Americans here, they think that, well, because I didn't do this properly, I didn't do this, you know, because we're trained, you know, make sure the hands are in position, whatever. And so for me, you know, my T-shirt says, "We are all Palestinians."
Thank you.
I believe very strongly that, you know, my struggle is connected to the Palestinian brothers and sisters across the sea. On top of that, there's also a history of black liberation struggles being in solidarity with the Palestinians. So for me, that is more than enough reason to be involved. Now, this police exchange program. First of all, police, exchange, Israel, oppression. Black people need to be on that, you know, because, you know, I've done some cop watch in this city. Not a lot, not as much as my other comrades, but I've done enough to know that, you know, in these neighborhoods where there are a lot of poor black people, the police are always there. I remember in the Edgewood Courts neighborhood here in Atlanta, that they were trying to do, I guess, sort of like an officer-friendly type thing, sort of like, "Hi, we're the police." And one sister was like, "Y'all shot my cousin last week."
Right.
You know, which is a reality. It's just like, you know, you know, that's why sometimes when people are just like, when is this going to stop happening? It's never stopped. You know, there are police murders all the time. The Malcolm X grassroots movement published Operation Ghetto Storm. Every 28 hours, you know, a person is killed by police. And the thing is that we really, really need to pay attention to that. I know that that's traumatizing to know that, you know, somebody in your family, somebody that you love can be hurt, you know, but, you know, they will tag anybody. So yes, you should be concerned that they're learning how to really especially break you. This is important to know. It's important to know that there are struggles across the world. Sometimes in the United States, I feel that we're too isolated. That we're just like, well, we're just concerned about what happens here. And I remember at an event where I was speaking on a panel, you know, this one brother was expressing why should he care about the Palestinians and stuff like that. And perhaps he was trying to imply that this was a hobby of white people or something like that. But the thing is, like, no. You know, especially since, you know, some of these cops that, you know, like these are the leadership. This is not just, you know, rank and file. This is the leadership. So not just, you know, through our research, we discovered, you know, the former police chief, Richard Pennington, was on the exchange. Current police chief, George Turner, has been on the exchange.
GBI director, Keenan.
Exactly.
And is a board member.
So these are people that, you know, they bring, you know, because when, you know, what is it? You know, people who work at a corporation, your boss goes to something, they come back and they implement policy. Really? Like, you know, these are people that maintain an open air prison. Okay? They're bringing back that information to, you know, further oppress the black and brown peoples in this country and the poor too, and to crush movements of dissent, of resistance in this country. You better be concerned. You need to be concerned.
You know, let me just say this. Victor Hill, first of all, as one who's been on the other side of the bars, you know, I've been incarcerated. I've been hurt by the police. Right in this parking lot.
Yeah.
I was arrested for having a flat tire.
So you went through what we call your ghetto rites of passage.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
ghetto-
You've been black in America. You done been
this
behind
man
that bars.
with Sue Ann Taylor standing out there telling me it's okay. He's a producer here.
Yeah.
They arrested me and took my van and my trailer. Now I said, oh no, this n- going to jail.
Yeah.
Now, Victor Hill, however, is I believe the example, and he's probably been on the exchange, but he is one of many that are beginning and have realized that needs to be changed. But when Victor Hill went in and tried to, he fired every in there that was part of the collusion and corruption. They made him hire every one of them back. Then you have your boy Ted Jackson right here in Fulton County. He has a different mentality. He has sons. He still worked for the white man. He's still in league. He had to take all the oaths and all, and you know, he's still down. He got the blue code, but he's trying to promote policies where recreation and other things are being infused in the community. So those are two that I would say, but they're not going to change the system. The Bible says, who can make war with the beast? So you're not going to change, just like the School of the Americas.
Who's
It's
not going
like,
to change
I
the
wanted
system?
I wanted to go to the School of America till you find out it was the School of Killers that they have
School of
set up.
Assassins.
The School of the Assassins.
Let me say this, though.
That's what America does.
Let me jump in there and say
Go
this.
ahead, Bob.
The views and comments. Comcast, its staff, its affiliates, its sponsors, they are strictly the views and comments of the arena and its panelists and its guests and its hosts.
Look out, Bud.
Actually, you know, truth be told,
You gonna do that like
Kevin
this?
looked out. She was just like, yo, make sure it's in meetings. Make
Well,
sure
we
you
were
do
talking
the
about the
disclaimer.
police. I just thought it should be.
She was like, yo, do the disclaimer. So, all right.
So anyway, I mean, in conclusion, just briefly, those are, I believe, things that the police see. When you have to start putting body cams on the police, and you already got cameras on the cars, when you have to police the police, you've already lost the battle.
So you think it's a lost battle?
It is lost.
Why?
Because they're a fraternal order. They have secret codes. They will kill you, your mama, Katherine Johnston.
So what do you do? Just
You cannot.
you can't do. You just pray your way out of it.
Well, the children of the Most High are going to be sacrificed like their king.
Man, come on. Man. Okay.
To be perfectly honest, I have a reaction to, because I noticed that a lot of people are like, yeah, good, there are going to be cameras on the cops and stuff like that. But I actually believe that some of you might know about Cop Watch, which is basically people in the communities being empowered to watch the police. And so for me, that is an opportunity to, instead of relying on the state to monitor their own police, which, you know, come on.
You got editors.
But at least you have the people who, you know, because when we do Cop Watch, you know, we go through Know Your Rights training. We also, you know, when we say we're just observing, we're not trying to have a conversation with the, you know, basically you have a backup camera, you have, you know, it depends on how you organize your local Cop Watch. But it's empowering, it's nonviolent, and it's confrontational.
Right.
Yes.
You know, it's sort of like, please, you know, can I have your name and your badge number? I think here in Atlanta it's your assignment number.
Oh no, they
But
will
the thing
take
is-
your camera.
Well, actually, just to let you know, some of you may or may not remember the raid on the Eagle, on the gay bar, the Eagle, and that was the Red Dogs. You know, those run every drug dealer out of
Red
Georgia.
Dogs,
okay,
right.
Everybody should know Red Dogs.
So
They
what
disbanded.
Goody Mob knows
Red
it.
Dog.
One to the two, yeah.
Come on,
Ready
go to
to
Red
go.
Dog.
Can you
Doc, and
explain
that's
what
your
Red Dog is for anybody who doesn't
doesn't know
know?
the Red Dog is? You're not from the hood.
Yeah, I know.
But go ahead.
Well, the purpose of Red Dog is essentially to make sure that, you know, the uncontrollable drug traffic is maintained by our wonderful boys in blue.
Yeah.
Red Dog.
Red Dog.
But they're known for, you know, in
Beat
fact,
down.
I believe
Beat
that
down.
it was many members of Red Dog who murdered Katherine Johnston.
Exactly.
So there's this thing where they might, and I think Mia G actually did an open records request on sort of like, you know, Red Dog's greatest hits, you know, sort of like their own violations. And guess what? They
Punches.
actually did some things wrong.
Whoa.
Y'all so stupid. But anyway, the thing is that it's important for us to make sure, well, okay, so Lambda Legal sued because this is Atlanta and that's not going to fly.
At all.
Okay, they're not going to bring back some old school, we're going to start,
right,
you know,
no.
because
Not that.
Stonewall was a riot against police.
Okay.
Okay, so now the police, you know, they came in and allegedly there were drugs, allegedly there was sex work or whatever. The charges were never really concrete, but they made a bunch of patrons lay on the ground, took their IDs, said all sorts of homophobic stuff.
Yeah.
Well, see, somebody was going to get sued over that.
Sure.
My friend, who's one of the cop watch of East Atlanta, his camera was actually confiscated and damaged by the police.
Didn't I
So
say
at
that?
the same time, when the judgment came through for the people of the Eagle, he also received a judgment for his camera as somebody working with Cop Watch.
Right.
So there is a relationship with Cop Watch in Atlanta. And when I say relationship, I don't mean that they work together.
Right.
I mean that they know they can't mess with Cop Watch. So for the most part, there's a policy that you must, if you are asked what your assignment number and your name is, you must provide it. And if they have you on camera refusing to give it, you'll get in trouble, but that's the official word. I don't know if you'll actually get in trouble. But the
So
thing
what,
is
how would, if, for our viewers out there interested in becoming a part of Cop Watch, how would they go about?
Excellent.
well, if you are in Atlanta, you can go to, I think it's Cop Watch of East Atlanta, and that's the word Cop Watch, oea.org. I believe that's their website. Of course,
Or Google it.
If you Google it, you'll find it. You know, the people in this collective, they do Know Your Rights trainings and Cop Watch trainings basically anywhere you ask them. It's for no charge. I've participated in some of these these trainings too. But it's important. Well, it's also important to know, you know, what was an earlier Cop Watch group wasn't the Black Panthers for
Cop Watch,
self-defense, you know, Cop Watch group. So
What happened to them?
And so, well,
What happens to any revolutionary group?
but the thing is that if you don't watch, because I'm pretty sure Mike Brown wasn't Cop Watch.
Exactly.
And I'm pretty sure Oscar Grant wasn't Cop
Thank you.
Watch.
So-
Thank you.
Or Ayanna, or anybody, you know, wasn't Cop Watch.
Let me ask this, and then we're going to get back to you, Diana, because I hear, you know, Gideon, you throw me off something. What is your solution? I mean, I hear this defeatist attitude, so what happens to the Panthers? What is your
Excellent
solution?
question. You know what? Our families is the solution. And the way we were trained, and see, when we talk about understanding police and how to act with police, the Southern upbringing taught you how to act around people, period, not just police. See, what we have lost is not the police, but the polite. We have lost manners. We have lost respect.
So
Because the imaging of white
Oscar Grant wasn't
supremacy.
mannerable?
No.
Sean Bell wasn't mannerable?
No.
Mike Brown wasn't mannerable?
This is where I was going. The imaging of white supremacy and how they have branded us on the world stage as the poster child of anger and hatred and dissent and evil doings. Therefore, they have, by us wearing the baseball hats and, you know, falling into this mode that they have
So,
identified as
Let me
hostile.
so let me ask that question. So you're saying that we should change our image?
We
is
can't
what you're
because
saying.
we don't control the media.
Right.
Cops
Should we be more
control the
tolerant
media.
towards police repression, police abuse?
Therein lies the answer.
So you
because,
think we
again,
should be tolerant for that stuff?
because of our upbringing in the South, because we were taught
But a lot of-
obedience, humility, I think that will save the lives of
You know
many
what a
of
lot
our
of my
children.
people would call that, and especially us in the Panther Party, they would call that bootlicking Uncle Tomism.
That's
They
my
would call
point.
it-
And respectability politics.
and
That's my
respect-
point.
right.
See, there, what you've actually elucidated upon is the change in philosophy from where a time when we were colored, and legally we still are, and when we were taught submission, respect, discipline, all these, the humbling effects of being oppressed.
Right.
Because we recognize now we've been told, oh, you've been free, you got education. Boy, look at what you got, a big house, big car, plenty of women.
I don't-
You out there, you baller.
And we're gonna go to Diane because I don't want to, but I don't think it's that, Gideon. I think just any person, any human being, understands that they have the right to freedom. They have the right to self-determination. They have the right to dignity. They have the right to determine their destinies.
How are you gonna have the right to all that and be oppressed at the same time?
You have that right. Now it doesn't. No one can take your. No people take your rights.
Yes,
but
they have.
Exactly, but you're giving them your rights.
Well,
You rather be. Listen, let me tell you something. You rather die. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Tell him.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying that's a great point.
But you're about to hit me with you're about to hit me with the biblical. You're about to hit me. You're about to hit me with another.
I'm asking you a question. Whose philosophy are you espousing?
I'm espousing for right now. Personally, I'm speaking for me, but I'm coming in the long line. Yeah, in the long line of revolutionaries who have who have said the same thing.
My revolutionary spirit leader is Yeshua, and he was.
And you see what happened to him.
But he had all power in his hand.
He couldn't get himself off that cross. Okay, hey, I'm just. It is what it is.
This is how we do it.
Let's go.
I was like wanting to get back to.
Let's go to you, Diane, because we'll be back and forth at this.
And I think it's an important question about how people struggle for their liberation.
Exactly.
I think it is.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that first to know how to struggle for your liberation is to know, in fact, what the facts are.
Exactly.
So,
who you're fighting against.
And who you're fighting against. So I want to kind of go back to why it is important that this program be stopped and be ended. And there are multiple entry points on that. When we first started this campaign several years ago, we were really directing it towards getting it off of Georgia State's campus. But as has been mentioned, like the School of the Americas, what the School of the Americas Watch has done is they have been pressuring the U.S. government to stop funding that school. But they've gone around the other way, and they've gone to the countries that used to send the soldiers to be brainwashed and into torturers and assassins, and they've convinced those presidents, because there's many now progressive governments, that they shouldn't have their soldiers be trained to be mercenaries for U.S. capitalism and imperialism.
Exactly.
So now we're thinking about, well, can we do that? Can we go to Pooler? Can we go to Pine City? Can we go, or Pine Lake.
Pine Lake, there you go.
And the city of Atlanta and Fulton County and all the rest, and launch an educational campaign that says, we don't want city resources, city funds, city police being trained to be, I think about it, what if during the height of the South African apartheid regime, if the city of Atlanta had been sending police to Johannesburg to learn.
They probably would have burned Atlanta down.
Community control. I think there was enough political awareness about what the situation on the ground was for the majority of people in South Africa, the South African people, and this white minority government, and how the U.S. corporations were benefiting, profiting.
Right.
Absolutely.
But we don't have that education sufficiently yet about how it is the connection between Israel, the profit that is generated by U.S. corporations, oil companies, technology companies, etc.
I think one of the things, too, that we wrestle with over here is two things with me. First is the Judeo-Christian movement. A lot of us still see, no offense, a lot of us still see Israel and the Jewish people as chosen people.
Right.
It's been psychologically implemented, especially in Africa, here in America's mind. You know, when you say Jewish, they back up from it. And taking in the relationship we had back in the day with the NAACP, the founding of the NAACP, the black and Jewish relationship. I don't think that we have really, like you said, we need an educational campaign to evolve and to get past a lot of these sentiments.
Well, if I could interrupt,
yes,
I think we definitely should have Jewish people are not the issue.
Right.
It's a state.
Exactly.
It's Zionism.
It's a Zionist state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's a difference between the religion
Exactly.
and a political movement that claims supremacy and not domination and the right to grab as much land as it
eradication of
could.
people,
So
yeah.
we should separate that out.
Well, that's one of the things we have to say, and you did.
Excellent.
You did an excellent job. And we try to point that out on the show. If you look at previous shows when talking to Mariam and a lot of our Palestinian guests, when we bring issues and lights to point out the difference between Zionism and our Jewish people. One thing that we're not is anti-Semitic, we're anti-oppression.
Exactly.
The second thing that we're dealing with too, when you're looking at not just the Judeo-Christian sentiment that a lot of the people have here, is also you're looking at Islamophobe. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't separate, like Mariam has so adequately pointed out one time when she, and for those viewers out there saying, ain't nobody ride Mariam's tip, man. Quit leaving all the comments on my YouTube.
And Vince, what's up, Vince? What's up,
What's
baby?
up, buddy? So we say this, so it's the Islamophobe, and one thing like Mariam had pointed out is that you have Christians, you have even Palestinian Jewish
Yes.
people.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So
Ethiopian
it's
Jews in Palestine.
right. So it is a genocide against a Palestinian people, not there. So we have to get the education campaign that, you know, when they put them on TV, you know, it's just like they did with the war when they was saying they were looking for a 9/11, looking for Osama bin Laden, and they end up in Iran. I mean, Iraq. Yeah, they end up in Iraq.
Right.
I don't know how they got the coalition. I don't know how
Nobody
you went
knows.
from how you went from, but it was a Muslim thing.
Wait a
You know what
minute
I'm
now.
saying?
They
when you
just
put-
said about ISIS.
Right.
Wherever ISIS is, Syria, Iran,
Yeah.
we're going to go.
We're gonna go right,
Same
and then what they
thing.
want to get, but that's
Bro.
what I mean when they put in this, when they put this Islamophobe, and then like I
Right.
said, the sentiment of this
Right.
Judeo-Christian thing of us still feeling like that's the Holy Land.
True.
That this, you know, I still catch a lot of flack even from my grandma if I say, you know, illegal state Israel. What's illegal about it? God gave them folks that country, you know. So we still go through a lot of that.
Right.
So I think an educational program, launching an educational campaign, is going to be instrumental.
Islamophobia is also really deeply ingrained into American culture. I mean, you know, to the point to where people will make casual jokes, you know, presuming that somebody who is a terrorist is a Muslim. You know, I've seen jokes like that. I've seen people say, "Oh my God, you know, they're so horrible with their women. They're so this, they're so that."
Right.
I'm like, the United States is horrible with
Thank
women
you.
too.
Thank you.
You know, the United States has done everything that you accuse. You know, they say that this is freedom of religion here, but one of the epithets that is actually, you know, thrown at at our current president is that he's a Muslim.
Right.
Which really, that shouldn't be a problem.
It shouldn't be.
Right.
But, you know, it's really deeply ingrained into our
Exactly.
culture. And in fact, you know, when I think about even some of the stories that I've heard growing up, you know, just even comics making casual jokes about, you know, hijab and all sorts of stuff.
Yes.
It's deeply ingrained into our
It
culture.
is.
So I feel like we have to push back against that. There was an organization, a very small one called FIG, Fighting Islamophobia in Georgia. It didn't really last long, but they were really trying to address some of the attacks on mosques in this country.
Yes.
So, you know, I do understand the concern of some people about anti-Semitism. I understand that. But I also want to point out that Islamophobia is well and alive in the United
Absolutely.
States and in other countries as well, especially in France.
Let me ask this question because, Kevin, you've been quiet.
Quiet the
I
whole
mean, and you're really the power broker on this set. And you know it, and I know it. I just wanted to get your perspective on this issue of the relationship between America and Israel and the police force as a young European male.
Sure.
I mean, talk to us. Don't be shy.
Okay, well, so I will say that the two women here today, Dawn and Diane, have had a huge impact on me personally in my political development and my personal development in becoming more focused on a lot of issues that are important to both women, people of color, people of LGBT backgrounds. So a lot of that has helped shape me as I am now, as an activist, and some of the work that I do. And so in this process, I think Dawn was the first one to mention the Gilly program, this exchange between police here and police in Israel and other countries, actually. When I first learned about that, I remember I was like, wow, like, so you're saying that our police are trained in Israel? And her first response to me was, I'm really glad I didn't have to explain that to you. And I think for white people, people from my background, because I come from a middle, even upper class background, And a lot of people in my community would not associate that. And so that's been something that I've kind of had to fight with my upbringing. And so I think one of the most important messages that I would have for anybody who can identify with that, with not understanding, is that part of doing good work to build a better society, a better world, involves constantly educating yourself, re-educating yourself about other people's perspectives and how they view that. With that said, there is a really good opportunity coming up to do that. So for those of you who mentioned the School of the Americas, this organization, it's actually housed at Fort Benning in Columbus, Georgia. They have a program November 21st to November 23rd. It's an entire weekend long, and there are people that converge on Columbus, Georgia. And it will happen this November. It's an annual thing. And activists from around the world actually come and converge, and they discuss all these different issues together. And there's workshops, and there's actually a wonderful vigil for all the people who have been killed by imperialist policy abroad, specifically in Latin America. And you hear those stories. And this was very, it had a great effect on me last year that I went. That was the first time I went. I'd highly recommend to anyone, and just Google School of the Americas Watch November Vigil. As you can see, I'm actually wearing a t-shirt right now. It's closed. School of the Americas, WINSEC, End Torture Now.
Oh my goodness, see, I didn't even know that. What is that? That's Latin, is it?
No, this is not Latin. This is, it says close, the School of the Americas.
Yeah, okay, I see. Okay.
Now, they've changed the name to WINSEC, much like, actually, Dawn mentioned this before we started. You mentioned that they've changed the name, is it of?
Red Dog.
Red Dog.
Well, they changed the name after that last situation that came up in the news that really publicized their existence. Because many people didn't even know that, of course, they popularized killing in America, period, through the media, but they didn't know that they had this school. Wow. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, so with that said, I want to invite everybody to that. There likely will be some kind of ride situation where people can get down there. If you don't have the means, if you need housing, things like that, those can be set up. And Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition is working on organizing those things for this year. So just go to the website. You can shoot me an email at KCARON.
Shoot may not be the right word. Anyway,
send KCARON2@gmail.com, and I'll try to help coordinate things, whatever. But that'll be happening this year, and actually there will be a discussion about how to connect all these struggles to anti-militarism, anti-imperialism that our organization will be working to do, and both of these two have done a lot of work on that. With that said, bringing back to the GILI program, we talked about what people can do, and I'm curious if Diane and then maybe Dawn could talk about what has been done in the past. What was the response from Georgia State?
Here
what was
it
the
is.
response?
We're coming up on the
are we?
5-minute mark.
My bad.
That's good.
Yeah, what we're going to have to do.
Because we have a lot to say.
Yeah, definitely talk to son. Get this
Yeah.
again. We have to have a continuation of this.
Okay.
So we'll talk to the super producer, get a continuation. But we want at least take 2 minutes in the closing out to kind of bring it, and we'll definitely try to have this on again. Because I'm sitting here like this, and I'm just having to look. I'm like, man, that's the quickest hour. Usually I'm running my mouth somewhere. Man, I've just been enthralled. Okay, but
I have to say I do a radio show that's an hour long too, and I find that the time
sometimes
flies by.
right when you have a real interesting.
When you have real
Where?
I'm on WRFG 89.3
yeah, I
FM.
got fam over there. No doubt. What time and what time?
I'm on Mondays from 4 to 5. Dawn
What's the
has
name
a
of your
program,
show?
and I do a program called the Labor Forum. I'm a retired auto worker, and I...
From 4 to 5.
You retired early though, didn't you?
That's
Thank you.
PM
After 30 years,
PM
and in the afternoon,
Okay.
drive time, 89.3 FM.
Yes.
So just to go back to every campaign, every progressive action, has a whole variety of tactics that we use over and over again. Educational programs, films, events like this show, petitions, leafleting, programs, trying to get a meeting with powers that be, demonstrations, sit-ins, So essentially, we've done a lot of that in our attempt to try to get the program taken off from Georgia State. We'd have to say that you should know that there was extreme pushback by the state.
Certainly.
They essentially have declared that the law enforcement that goes on this exchange, that's a state secret now.
Right.
They've essentially said, we're not going to let you know. So so that's a little bit why we're perhaps moving to this other direction, going to the local authorities that have the ability to stop sending Georgia police.
Kevin, since you like a host, we're going to skip you.
That's fine. That's fine.
Because you come back on. Hey, man, you know, you get your questions in, you come back on.
It's all good.
Don, you on the...
I was one of the students that met with University President Mark Becker, and one of the things that I learned from that meeting was not to underestimate him. And I feel like maybe to some extent that we did. The thing that I didn't realize was, is this man an ardent supporter of this program? Or is he simply in place trying to maintain, the status quo with regard? That wasn't very clear. But what was clear was that even though we were students who had petitioned and attempted to deliver petitions to the president and his office, and actually we were told that he did not meet with students. Later on, he said that was not true, but I have ways of proving that that is true. And then later on, we were talking, and basically we had a meeting with the president of the university and their lawyer and somebody from student affairs. And what became clear was that even though we were able to get across our points, there were 3 students and a community member in the room, that the president was not open to discussing this issue. That our demands were basically to shut the program down and to investigate. But we were not even given the information about the program. In a public university, they were talked about as if they were students. But then it's just like, I know if I was in a program on campus, people would have access to that program.
Right, exactly.
And yet the people don't have that. So I can expound more on that the next time.
Yeah, we definitely have. Kev, they cut off with him. And would you like to send a shout out or say anything?
You know what? I just want to say thanks for bringing this issue to light, because there's
thanks
some
for brokering this.
Yeah, well,
That's what time
no
it is.
problem. There's definitely some more organizing that's starting to take hold right now around this issue. So hopefully I'll be able to get information to you and your viewers about that.
Excellent, excellent. And we want to thank everyone. Gideon, did you want to take it down? We want to thank everyone for coming out, man. High Powered Show. You can catch us on the Arena YouTube, all one word, no spaces, the Arena 2013. Just, I got to applaud everybody for coming on, bringing this information. We're going to try to bring it back again to continue this thing because we didn't get enough.
Black Sun in the heezy for cheese.
Salute to Black Sun.
Yeah,
Sister G, be safe. The whole, the whole production, everybody at Comcast for letting us do our thing and rock our thizzle. Again, our panelists, great panelists.
Yes. Woo.
My man Gideon,
Servant.
the servant.
You already
Black Sun
know.
call you the king.
God,
And everybody, Kevin, for bringing this thing together.